before. And everybody that I know in the audience at that time was so bowled over by his relentless range of things, creativity, that it seemed inevitable that he must come to the rally. And that's why he's here.
Good morning. Last time, on May, I made a lecture here, and today I have almost same slide, but in different orders. I added menus. At the time, I had not menu slide, because I'll show comparing my works of 60s and 70s. And maybe left side, on the left, I'll show maybe 70 works, and on the left, maybe on everything of 60 works. Because I like to explain my change of style, change of thinking, change of my philosophy from 60 and 70 now. Because just end of 60, I had a lot of experiences. One was student powers, 68. 69, 70. At that time, I was involved so much in Japan of this kind of activity, student activities. And I had a lot of impressions from there. And at the same time, I was involved the work of Expo 70. Mostly architecture students and designers in Japan, and made protest to this kind of national festivals organized by government, such as Expo 70. But very early of the planning of the 70s, Expo 70, I collaborated with Professor Tange to make whole plan and to make master plan, and to also make, I proposed several ideas. And I had to do to realize it. So I couldn't give up that work. So I did anyway. So in that case, in that age, on one side, I was involved to such protesting radical people, and also other side I was involved such how to say establishment work. So I couldn't stand up at the end of the Expo 70. I fallen down and I had sick. I mostly stayed on bed almost 1 year. And after that, I maybe this kind of hard time and made some change and asked me change to the thinking and styles. Maybe. So you can find the comparing my 60 and 70 works of and the just looking at this kind of epoch. Also, just, from the beginning, I like to ask, and I like to talk from my early work. I began to work design at middle of 50s. At that time, I had two teachers. One is my continuous teacher until now, Professor Tange, and I occasionally collaborate him. For example, his major work for future city proposal, Tokyo Bay Plan of 1960, and Scorpio Plan project of 65, and also this Expo 70 work. And also, after 70, I collaborate again, and once, twice times to him. And another teacher is Mr. Konrad Waxman. And when he came to Japan in 1955, I was a student of him, and he had 21 students from 7 universities, and each each student had grouped into 7 groups. So each had 3 students, and we studied. And at that time, around 1955, around, mostly Japanese architecture. Architect, for example, the Tange was very characteristic at the time. He worked especially on the reinforced concrete buildings, and this kind of reinforced concrete building, mostly he got technological or spatial approach from Le Corbusier's later works, and also he combined this kind of reinforced concrete techniques into Japanese traditional proportions of wooden structures. So in this case, we had a lot of discussion about tradition and contemporary modern architecture. This kind of discussion we have a lot. So at the time, Mr. Waxman came to Japan. His idea is already is purely technological. I found, and also not only purely technological. He had very deep thought of philosophy or something like that, according to his technological work. And I had a lot of influence, I think, and you can find it also, some of the influence of him on my works, other works too. Okay, let's start slide. Sorry, this second. This okay, that's all right. All right. Left side, 60 work. That's a girls' high school. I finished it 64. And right side slide is Museum of Gunma Prefecture, Gunma Modern Museum of Art. Also, this is finished. Was finished at 74. Just 10 years difference from left side to right side. And you can see series of slides of the same school, left side, and right side you see the series of museum. And right side, this is a site this is a completely flat field with just like English gardens. And my first first idea, original idea, was to spread, thrown on the lawn this kind of very simple cubic frame. So you can see here the comparison, artificial cubic frame with natural forest. And comparing these two buildings, you saw similar manners. For example, I have a pair of same type of building. Left side, there are two pair of towers. Pair of towers, and right side you have two row of a cube. And the characteristic stylistic change is the finishing or detailing of the form. Because on the left, and every structure try to export its own form. But on the right side, and I try to all element into very simple single cubic frame. And also, this museum, the cost of the museum are a little bit better than school. So I could use the aluminum panel on surface, but I couldn't use a layer of the building, just the front of the facade. I think around 60, I had a lot of influence from this kind of brutalistic reinforced concrete expressions. At that time, the most reliable technique in Japan was exposed reinforced concrete. At that time, we had very good carpenters, traditional carpenters, and last 20 years, this kind of traditional carpenter were trained to use a very good. They are using their very good skill into the reinforced concrete form. So we could use this kind of techniques at the time. But later on, Japanese technology developed, and we lost this kind of technique of the craftsman, and we must use this kind of very simple prefabricated aluminum panels. And this slide is showing the difference of the articulations of reinforced concrete building and 60 and 70. On the left, you can see the articulated details. Each panel are separated and putting together, but slightly separated. But on the right, I didn't use such articulations. Just I covered simple square aluminum. just two towers that paired. But at the beginning of my work of 60, I rather prefer the very simple form. This kind of square pattern of windows also continues into today. You can see this kind of just square pattern of window opening. And left side is Oito Prefecture Library, which I designed from the beginning of 60, and I finished it 66. And right side also continuing Museum of Modern Art in Gunma. But in this case, and on 60, I had very much interest on the time concept of architecture. Time concept, it means that growth or change of the architectural life. For example, I try to express this kind of concept for the expression of the building. For example, you have here two pair of walls, and from this main axis or trunk, this kind of unit of spaces are projected into both sides according to the program. For example, this area is reading room, this office, this small auditorium, this main entrance hall, and counter, lobbies. And in such a way, we have this kind of repeating forms to express the unit of this kind of unit for the growing unit element. And for the museum, the concept slightly changed. Just I put this kind of monumental frame. It's each length has 12 meters. And quite so sometimes we have 2-story and 3-story inside of this frame. So here is pair of walls, and from this wall, all elements are projected into both sides. This is a unit of the office unit, and this is reinforced concrete beam. And also, this scheme has some structural meaning for earthquake, because when earthquake came, so all earthquake powers supported these two walls, and this side are completely free to support. So this pin supported this side, and this not. But this kind of structural expression you cannot find here. Just frame, nothing else. On the frame, this is a basic frame, or basically this is a cube. This was cube, and this cube are divided into this kind of very simple square patterns, and it also reflects onto the frame. And the cladding of the windows or walls into the frame similar patterns like this. Very simple way of detailing. But this building are very, very complicated details. For example, there are frames like this. And on the frame, from this wall, the long beam project and pin supported here, and on pin supported and on this point, you have another roof structures like this, and all elements are expressed from to the outside. And this kind of characteristic form you can find here. This is a kind of symbolic expression of this kind of growing process of the building. But on the other side, at the gate for the museum, I use this kind of very simple cubic frame, cube, and I cut it out the wall like this. And I'll explain the form and shape of this later. From the gate, view from the gate, and also at the entrance of the library on the left. It's the rear side of the building, and other side. It's a very simple aluminum panel, and this side just reinforced concrete wall. Every corner, every side expressed like that. So one of the details of the entrance. There are this kind of a kind of hands. And I took this idea from Japanese traditional townhouse fence in Kyoto and converted it, and made by bamboo at the time, but I converted it precast stone. And this is just a simple circular form for slope to the approach. And again, I show you some of detail of each building. You can see here there's a slit for the sun passing through. This kind of expression, I try to show the structural expression for the pin supporting. But here, the very simple. Not such a detail. If I try to use this kind of concept for this building, I must use some different materials, for example, and must expose the beads and something or brace or like that. But I didn't show that. This building, in the box B, we had the air conditioning systems incorporated because this main beam box inside is hollow, and all the air conditioning ducts come through underground and coming up here and turn like this. And supplied to each the beam. So in this case, I try to incorporate or integrate all kind of structure and all kind of systems. For example, structural systems, equipment systems, mechanical system, electric system, and space. Unit space system too. This is very interesting for me. This was to passing through just a space and very narrow bridge passing through, and you could have very different space feelings from standing on the floor. So after that, this is a kind of my constant styles. For it appears almost all my buildings later, and so this is the bridge, just same type of that other one, and also you can see the substructures. All substructure painted, and the major structure is an exposed reinforced concrete. Here is standing Richard Meyer. Also, the feeling of light is very, very different because traditional Japanese houses, we had no skylight. All lights we get first from on the garden, and all sunshine, all natural light reflects on from garden into the veranda and to the ceiling, and reflected like this, and horizontally moving, reflecting both sides, and ceiling, floor, like that. So we didn't have skylight, but I faced to work on, in this case, to get skylight, because in the tradition of Europe, this kind of skylight is very, very natural. You have lots of just similar ideas, but we haven't. So this is my first approach to this kind, European traditions. But this case, and we have all whole height of the openings, very simple sunshine passing through, and it's very the feeling is very dry and much drier than other library. This one of the details. Every detail are reinforced concrete, it was, but in mostly reinforced concrete. But then trying to show the substructure, I painted. This is a diagram of the library, which I use colors on the floor and on the wall. There are two pair of walls. This is the corridors, and I painted it just like greens. But this is the museum, this is the main entrance lobbies, and this lobby had 4 bays of the whole height of the whole squares, cubes. But in the lower frame, and this kind of marble steps built it in. And also, every element has a right angle, rectangular forms, but every edge of these steps had a branching point here. So if you stand up here, you have reversed perspective. This is the main lobbies. This is a bridge passing through main lobbies too. This is a library. And staircase. This is the main staircase for the library, museum, and that one for libraries, corridors. And this building I did 1965 and 6, and at that time, and it's it was very unfamiliar to use such a bright color for buildings in Japan. And I tried use a lot of bright color at that time in this kind of movable circulation space. But for the museum, all this kind of bright color disappeared just into the neutral. That's white marble, or painted white walls, just gray reinforced concrete. That's all. I just also the staircase coming up into the machinery room on the top. There are Corbusier-like staircase, but just painted white. But on the other side, you can see the different colors on. And the left side is the branch of the project for the branch of the bank, just on the corner of the street. And there are cut of the rectangular three corners. So in this case, I use 2 cubes slightly displaced and connecting both sides. And this is the frame, which I built it in the 2 floors for the museum, mounting up and down. And there are, you can see 2 cubes, and all cubes are cut like this. And filled with just simple square patterns, and span by steel frame diagonally. That's that's showing the process of design, which I used to get this kind of final design. There are mesh of square patterns and divided into 2 cubes and displayed like this, and cut it like that and span. And this side is just a wing of the museum, a right wing. It's this main axis like this here, and only this part slightly turned, facing to the main gate for this park of the main entrance. And also this part projected into the pond, onto the pond, and pond reflects a real image upper part like this. So here you can see the duality of the concept, for example, down and up, or real and unreal, and reflected. And so main design concept is just like to show the duality or the opposition of the basic form. That's a museum looking from the purity part. This is mounting up and upside down. And all ceiling are covered by aluminum too. So in this case, the sunshine reflects on the pond, and from the pond reflected on floor, on ceiling. Other side of, and this is the ceiling of the right branch of bank. This is a diagonal path, and between steel beam, just this kind tube of efflorescence, very simply layout. Here, here is the detail of the pond. This side it had 1 meter and 20 centimeters, and this is 60 centimeters. So if water come up, water must be come up like this. In this case, we have very just same side of beam and crown. Details of both buildings. This building finished 71 or 2, so it's almost 70 works. But for me, it's belonging to the 60 concept. One of the view of the main entrance hall. From this slide, I show several series of urban scale projects. This Professor Tange's Tokyo Bay plan of 1960. And at the time, I collaborated with him to work on the whole project. This is the main Tokyo. This is a central area. And on this scheme, the main idea is to get this kind of huge axis. This is directly north, 45 angle. So it's facing to the northeast. And projecting the main axis with the transportation, special transportation systems. We call it cycle transportation systems. It became from some of the systematic ideas, but we realized it's not working well. But anyway, so we proposed this time this kind of ideas. And from this axis, on the axis, there are main cities facilities on the axis, and from this, on both sides, we have housing. This from this slide, I show several views to the this marble step. This part is the main staircase coming up into the second floor. Only this part covered by this kind of white marble. This is reinforced concrete, and you can see this step there. This is the main axis of Tokyo Bay plan. It's just reflecting this kind of wave of. That's other view. and many large-scale structures spanning 100 meters and 100 meters, 150 meters more. Stand up here. All walls are finished reinforced concrete and rectangular form. And this part, all these parts are cutted like this, and all line vanished into this point. And also, I filled the space in between this marble and wall with the mirror. So in this case, this steps looks like separating from this wall, and it looks like coming to the front. And next one is the project for the Scorpio reconstruction plan of 65. Also, I collaborated with Tange at that time. And there are similar ideas of this kind of transportation systems. And these are two freeways here. And from freeways, we have two interchanges passing through. This is the main interchange of the cities, and we call it city gate like this. And both sides of the city gate, we have main office floor and buildings. This stations, I think, and only this part actually done by Professor Tange, only on platform, no buildings, not yet. The detail of there are typical, I think, 60 ideas of the buildings you can find. And there are row of this kind of vertical cylinder shaft. And between this kind of cylinders, we have office spaces and very, very at random form. And here you can see the mirror. The main axis of the city. And this is not the rectangular, this is the wall, a rectangular wall, and or edge of the marble step. This is my wife's contribution for the museum, for the partition or using glass. And that's a building, main office building complex. And just same time, or the later of this building, Professor Tange finished same idea of the building complex for Yamanashi telecommunication centers. And this is my very early work of 1960, or 59 or 60. And you can find the earlier ideas of the Scorpio project here, the vertical shaft and the spanning space frame. So in this case, I got learned from this kind of idea from Conrad Waxman, connecting this kind of vertical beam, vertical shaft. And also, I think this vertical column and horizontal beam, we get this kind of composition from Japanese traditional building type. That's one of the main entrance of the library, museum, and looking through from large view, windows. And at the time, this is my project for the competitions, but I didn't send it. I couldn't finish. But this was, I think, 62 or 3. I didn't know the archigram people are doing in the same way in this country, but completely separate. And in Japan, in Tokyo, I'm doing just in the same way. There's the vertical shaft and plugged in this kind of capsules like that. The another view passing through the window. This is another version of the same ideas, I did early 60s, from using vertical shaft and projected capsule type units and plugged in, or I don't know. So. This is another branch of bank from same bank. I did it. I had done on 67 around. In this case, the form is very simple, square, but I try to cut it many corners for 45 degrees angle, and this is the banking hole here, and passing through the top of the banking hole, I propose this kind of bridges suspended from the main beam. There are staircase here, and bridges and staircase like this, and coming up into the main towers. Right side, also the one detail of the museum of the slope. And from the exhibition hall, you can see this kind of slope. Looking at the ceiling, so only red parts are painted in salmon pink. This is corridors, and all painted in red, and natural skylight coming pass through from the top. So if you can, if you come in, you can feel in the daytime just floating into the very red sky or atmospheres. But many people worried about this kind of red because for emergency, it looks like fires. So, but that's also one of the corner of the museum. The corridors and air conditioning nozzles. These are two nozzles from air conditioning duct projecting into both sides, different angles. That's a air conditioning duct too. And this is a drawing for not the actual drawing, but just the imaginary drawing for the bank space experiences. This is kind of staircases coming up, passing through, and coming up staircase, and again there are a spiral like staircase like this on the top. And you, passing through this, you could feel different view, just like different juxtaposed space experiences. But I think on 60, just I'm working on according to the feeling or the space experiences or for the actual feeling or bodies. Not so much about the mental or conceptual thinking, just for feeling of the body. But later on, 70s, mostly I'm working on based on the very conceptual ideas or form. For example, this is one of the wall for the lecture hall of museum, and it's a very simple painted in white. And in the middle of the wall, I put the frame and cubic frame, imaginary cubic frame like this, and slightly turned. And from the center of the cube, I projected all edges of the cube onto the wall and connected. So it's a kind of reflection of the imaginary cube. So you can see here this kind of very simple lines. Just a simple line here, and that's a very actual objective nozzle. That's the main exhibition hall and lecture hall. This is two different buildings. This is the main bank building of the same one, and I finished it 70 or 71, but I started to design it from 68. So all ideas belonging to the 60s, I think. And this very recently I finished the small buildings for the several gallery, office, and some of the club room. This is the main entrance, both of the entrance. You can see here some of the element parts of the cylinders. It symbolizes the bank, because bank always had Greek orders. So this is a part of the order column, and this is a columns, just a computer floors inside it. And main entrance here, just a simple symbolic marble gate. But in this case, there are semicircular cut it out, semicircular entrance space. And surrounding this wall, there are just same size of the openings like this, and only two are open. And just same size, but this is the mirrors, and sometimes a mirror too. And at the time, I tried to, to make people to frustrate, to find real doors. But they had a lot of trouble, so they put this kind of math on top. they disturbed my ideas, anyways. And this from the outside view. This is a parody, I think, for the Italian palazzo, because Italian palazzo, they have main floors called piano nobile here. And this must be rustic. But I couldn't use very thick stones. I use very simple thin stones here. So you can see here, this very thin stone looking separate, like this. The detail of wall. That's a museum of detail. And these two slides show the reflection of the polished materials. That's glass, and that's a granite reflecting the cloud. This is a roof plan of the main bank. So you can find the same idea of the library. The main walls here, and project both sides according to the program. Because at the time, this kind of idea was very useful. Because when I try to design this kind, began design, they had no programs, so not fixed. So I proposed this kind of very simple main spine, and according to negotiating to the client, I added this kind of space and small elements, and just to export. But in this case, it's a very simple. It has very simple program, and also volume are decided. So I use 6 of cube, and on the top, just same 6 cubes, but size is different. 1/3 into the 1/3. So you have just same frame. Larger one and smaller on the top. For the penthouse, it is. You can see here the smaller size of the main building, and this is the larger frames here. That's a library. Libraries. That's a computer programmer's sitting room, very soft, 60 ideas. And that right side is the staircase for the Shukoisha building. This is one of the corner of the main bank. And you can see here the screens and printed, not printed, this is handwoven. And we took from this kind of image from Man Ray's photograph. Do you remember the Man Ray's music? I don't know the name. So, that image. And this also just contemporary painting on, for example, primary structure or hard edges like that. And if you turn off the light here, or both sides, you can find, a repetition of this kind of eyes. Also, this is the kind of reflections. And there are another reflections. Here, these are the real objects, vertically and air conditioning duct, and there's a balcony and main beams and this kind of horizontal duct, and painted in different. And these real objects are reflected on this kind of elevator shaft, white wall. And so this color reflected on this, and this coming to like that. And this one passing to like this. From the other side, coming like this. And all these drawings are done and drawn looking at from here. So if you stand up here, you have real objects and distorted and projected on the planes. So you feel some of the difference or the distortions of the real one. These are very traditional reflections. The bridges. In the main bank, that's just simple painted in white. But in this case, all walls are painted in white, but bridges are done by steel frame and painted in bright colors. So, and corner of the steps, just a traditional, step, and that one too. But this straight line, but this kind, diverse angle. A detail of bridge and a meeting room in the main bank covered by aluminum. And you see the very simple light here. Here is light too. And the one of the room in the bank, and for the others, Shukoshi building for the step. These are my wife's work here. Could you change the story? Left side is my drawing. I did it around 60, and this the project for volcano Vesuvius for some of the exhibition of the gallery. In this case, I think you can understand very well here. There are some of my basic ideas on vertical shaft and horizontal bridge by space frame, and very classical Greek orders and very futuristic larger scale cylinders. And here is somewhere is under construction going up and this is going down. And like this, there are a lot of ambivalent ideas and ideas of ambivalence. And I try to show the difference of this kind of new and old, and future and past, and solid and linear. And in this way, I try to combine this kind of different ideas. And in this case, this is a very simple proposal. Just I calculate all the void of the craters, and I converted it into the cube, and projected the edge of the cube into the face of the craters and painted white. Very simple. But in this case, I am trying to show the difference of natural topological form and artificial geometrical form. So this line shows the difference of it. That one. This is another idea. So same ideas. And this the picture was taken just after the atomic bomb of Hiroshima, and I proposed future city like this. That's a basic ideas, just a simple vertical shaft, and Ford and elevators, lift, plumbing, and everything, all kind of communications facilities inside. And that's a museum. Just the same time I did. Just a simple straight cube on the top of the hill. Like this. And this is another proposal for some of the city, main city of the center of the city. This is a 1 mile long building covered by pneumatic structure, and all kind of main buildings of the city are not separated and incorporated into one large building. Just an imaginary project I did. That's a some bank, which I like to show this kind of lettering and aluminum panel detail. And this is the interior of the museum. You can see both sides like tubes covered by die-cast aluminum. And in this case, this just has just a simple axis, like a Baroque building. Very detail are going to finish, becoming neutral. That's another project to the for branch of bank, and these kind of ideas are reflecting on the museum project. And in this case, this is the first building which I use very pale colors. from gray to off-white, I use only this very narrow range colors. And this kind of color mix the shade and shadows into the real painted colors and the real this kind of shadow and shade. So it's mixed. So in this case, you can feel just like sitting in the twilight. And this is much more clear. And this kind of shadow and shade here, and very all colored with white, off-white, a little bit off-white, and like gray like that. Very, very narrow range, but very different. There's some that curve I'm using. Here, that's a Marilyn Monroe, and here, and yeah, I took this curved rule from her bodies, from her pictures, very early pictures, and I'm using every time, for example, this kind of curve here, maybe like this. And also to design chairs, I use this kind of curve. But originally, this is a prototype done by Macintosh. And I changed the straight line of the back into the Marilyn Monroe curve. This this is the same idea which Hans Hollein explained last night, the facade of the building. In the home bank is a kind of trademark of this bank. So I use computer letters to design the shop front. And in this case, that's you can see the cafeterias curved according to the Marilyn Monroe, and cut out wall like this. And this is the rear side of the front. This is a country clubhouse here. That's a medicine club, a medical center in the same town. And I did this. This is my first commissions. I got 1960. I finished this side. And I was asked to get extensions of the building after 12 years. So I finished it 72. But mostly, all ideas are developed from the 60 ideas. And this is just a different project. This is a country clubhouse. It has this kind of very simple circular cylinder. There is a reinforced concrete cylinder. And all this side are tied by steel. So very simple structures and supported by wall and column. This is the library, facing to the not clear, clean pond. And this is the building which I did, 60. In this case, this is a kind of feeling of horizontal movement. It's a kind of cylinder going through like this and supported up to the third floor. And that's an edge of detail of the clubhouse. Now, originally, this is lecture hall, and they need another one So in this case, I use this kind of amphitheater type of lecture hall. These sections, the cylinder here, and this extension part. There are floors of the lecture hall on the top, and skylight here like this. And under the floor of the lecture hall, there are maybe more than 7 or 6 level of floors, and each floating separately. That's a golf club ceiling, and you can see here same idea or similar form. This is the main entrance hall. You can see this kind of tension tie bar covered stainless steel and painted white. Very simple structures. And these are two, but here is a ceiling here and split levels like this, and bridges you can see. That's a vault, and this is the other one. Looking up and down, you can see here the kind of feeling similar to the Piranesi's prison drawing. And added elements for kitchen unit, and that's air conditioning duct. And lighting system. All lighting system is according to the form of this floor. There are very simple bulbs. And again, ceiling system, lighting system. This two buildings, that I showed earlier, the museum, the two tubes. That's a large giant called giant robot for Expo 70. I did. There are base here, and that's a bodies, and bodies coming up and down, and there are two eyes, and so I said this had a nickname, projected eye, like that. That's stations for control, and they have arms here. No, I'm sorry. And there are balconies moving up and down, just like electricity workers using steps. And now it's the performance robots is robots working on the Festival Plaza of Expo 70. There are many flashlights, lights, and projectors, and everything they have. There is built it into the robot. And that's a library, museum, audiovisual center complex. It's a kind of cultural center of the town. And Kitakyushu Municipal Central Library. There are two tubes running from here like this and turn and cut it. And it's in a different way, turn like this. And in between the two tubes, there are Marilyn Monroe shape of cafeterias and slope coming up, down, and another entrance here. And that's the main entrance level here, and this so this level is two-story up. So there are long staircases like this, and usually this is a kind of very static form it has, but always the robot must work, move like that. So after this, I show many scenes of performance at Expo 70, and I continue to show this kind this library. And this roof covered by copper, and it has this kind of vault form, very simple artificial geometry. And there is this kind of natural lawns. I try to compare. That's a joke. You know. That's on the end of the vault. There are two vaults. Just cut it. And another side of the vault, there are stained glass, rose windows like this. This is kind of the ideal performance. No, this is a performance on the process of the construction using this kind of precast concrete roof, and that's just dancing the performance. This is under construction stage. It's a huge space frame. I think this major structure done by Kenzo Tange. I think in this case he must say thanks to Waxman. That's another performance, just a simple cube and the toy dogs running, coming out through. And there are huge stages, and this was a really funny performance it was. Children, right? Here you have several different forms coming together. This interiors. especially I worked on this kind of robot and this kind of lighting systems and sound and movable systems. And these are pneumatic structures, half transparent. This is an interior of the library. Ceiling. Only 3 pieces of the form are used here. 1, 2, and horizontal part 3. But in this case, the many different frames they used. You know, that's a suspended robot for the lighting and many colors and operated from remote control, and also are connected to the computer. Shampoo bulb, lots of shampoo bulbs coming through. You know, this is a tube of air tube, and from robot there are this kind of happenings they had. That's a stained glass I designed for the library. I'm sorry. This stained glass, I took the idea from one of the pattern of the natural philosophers of 18th century. His idea was based on the Yang-Yin theory of Chinese, very classic Chinese philosophies. And he developed it, combining the modern science. And when he wrote that book, he made a lot of diagrams according to the Yang-Yin theory. So I took these patterns from his book and put the color into this kind of rose window. Oh, so coming back. And this is the last building about private house, residence. This is a private house I did 1964, almost one of my early work. And last year I did this circular house. And comparing the slide, you can see the change of 60 and 70 again. That's a very simple cubic form, but a little bit smooth form they have. One opening and cubic form and circular form. In this case, this is a floor plan and ceiling. Ceiling are divided into 9 parts and very geometrically. And also in the center, it's divided into 9 too. And this from this 4 corner, skylights coming, but on the floor, the partition and layout of the furniture completely not according to the geometrical form of the pattern of the ceiling. So always we have some of the difference, the geometrical, and this is a formalistic space. But this layout according to the behavior of the daily life. So always this kind, I try to show the difference. The simple skylight here, or air conditioning here. And another project, it's a just project. Just cube bedroom and very simple, large, square, almost cube living room. And this section came from here. I found very similar ideas. Maybe this is just I did this in 68 around. So in this case, I had some of the idea from Akiran people. So this is a kind of movable walls and a kind of robot here, and inflatable space with wagon. And always in 60s, I try to make elements to mechanized with using the technologies to express the technologies. But now I became coming back very quiet, very simple form, and also without colors, very neutral, not so active, very quiet. So this is our last slide, showing the significance of 60 and 70. These are just 60 ideas which I involve so much. It's everything movable, very bright and colorful and active and operative. But now I'm coming back very quiet place. Just the simple, this is one of the windows with the cylinder house. The simple square windows looking through the trees. It's just symmetrically placed on, painted white, and very neutral, and very simple light. Not so like flashlight and color light and operate and controlled by computer, like that. Very simple one. I'm now thinking, and I don't know. I'm going in which ways, but today I try to show this kind of my change of the feeling, or change of the manners, or change of styles of the last 10 years. Thank you so much.